The rain didn't just fall, it assaulted the city, a relentless curtain of grey that blurred streetlights into impressionistic smudges and turned the asphalt into a slick, black mirror. Derek Thorne gripped the steering wheel of his aging sedan, the rhythmic slap of the wipers a hypnotic counterpoint to the worry thrumming in his chest. Another late night, another meager collection of fares. Enough for gas, maybe. Not enough for the gnawing anxiety about the rent, about Lily's new shoes, about the ever-present quiet ache of just barely getting by. His car, affectionately nicknamed the Steadfast, coughed a little as he idled at a red light, the sound a familiar reminder of its own precarious mortality. Like him, it was tired, overworked, but somehow kept going. He glanced at the small, slightly faded photograph tucked into the sun visor. A smiling woman with eyes that crinkled at the corners, her arm around a much younger, happier Derek. Sarah. The memory, as always, brought a familiar pang, a mix of love so profound it still stole his breath, and a grief that had settled into his bones like a chronic chill. Lily. His daughter was the sun in his often overcast world. 7 years old, with Sarah's bright eyes, and an imagination that could build kingdoms in their tiny two-bedroom apartment. For her, he drove these long hours, navigated these rain-lashed streets, swallowed his pride and his dreams. His dream. Landscaping. It felt like a phantom limb now. That old ambition. To cultivate, to shape, to bring beauty from raw earth. He used to sketch elaborate garden designs in notebooks, his hands calloused then from soil and stone, not just the worn plastic of the steering wheel. Now, those notebooks gathered dust under his bed, relics of a life that felt like it belonged to someone else. The rideshare app pinged, a new request, close by. He accepted, the map directing him a few blocks over, towards a newer commercial district that always felt a little too sterile for his taste. As he pulled up to the designated spot, a sleek, modern office building with dark glass reflecting the downpour, he saw her. A woman, standing huddled under the inadequate awning of a bus stop, her shoulders hunched against the wind that whipped rain into her face. She looked drenched, papers clutched in one hand, a briefcase in the other, its leather already dark with moisture. He flicked on his hazard lights and leaned over to unlock the passenger door. She didn't seem to notice him at first, her attention fixed on the empty street where a bus was clearly long overdue. He tapped the horn lightly. Her head snapped up, and he saw a flash of something, frustration, perhaps a hint of desperation, in her eyes before it was quickly masked. She hurried to the car, pulling the door open with a grateful sigh as she slid inside, bringing a gust of wind and the scent of rain-soaked wool with her. "Oh, thank goodness," she said, her voice a little breathless. "I thought I was going to turn into an icicle out there. My app just kept spinning." "Nasty night for it," Derek replied, his voice calm, even. He pulled away from the curb smoothly. "Where are you headed?" She gave him an address across town, a residential area he knew vaguely. As she settled, shaking water from her hair, he caught a better look at her in the dim glow of the dashboard lights. She was older than him, perhaps late 40s or early 50s, with a sharply intelligent face currently softened by her predicament. Her clothes, though damp, were well tailored, speaking of a professional life far removed from his own. He noticed the way she clutched the papers, as if they were precious. "My own car decided tonight was the perfect night for a complete and utter rebellion in the parking garage," she explained, a wry smile touching her lips. "And then the buses. Well, let's just say they seem to be running on wishful thinking tonight." Derek nodded. "Sounds about right for a Tuesday downpour. They can be temperamental." He focused on driving, navigating the flooded gutters and the erratic movements of other vehicles. The silence stretched for a few moments, filled only by the rain and the hum of the engine. "It's Eleanor, by the way," she offered suddenly. "Eleanor Vance." "Derek Thorne," he replied, meeting her gaze briefly in the rearview mirror. "Pleasure to meet you, Eleanor, even if it's under less than ideal circumstances." She laughed, a surprisingly warm sound. Likewise, Derek. You're a lifesaver. I was chairing a late community funding meeting, and it ran over. Important work. But it doesn't make the rain any warmer. She gestured to the papers still in her hand, finalizing some grants for local initiatives. Good projects, deserving people. Always the hardest part, making the choices. Something in her words, deserving people, resonated with a distant part of him. The part that still sketched garden plans in the dark. He found himself saying, almost involuntarily, "It's good work, helping people get a start, or a restart." Eleanor looked at him with renewed interest. "It is incredibly rewarding. Do you have a particular interest in that sort of thing?" Derek hesitated. It wasn't his way to share his private longings with strangers. But the rain, the quiet intimacy of the car, something about her genuine tone, loosened his tongue. "I used to dream of having my own landscaping business," he said, the admission feeling both bold and foolish. "Years ago, life had other plans, I guess." He kept his tone light, as if it were a passing thought, a discarded hobby. "Landscaping," Eleanor prompted gently. "That's a wonderful skill. Creating beauty, working with nature." "Yeah," Derek said, a faint smile playing on his lips as a fleeting image of a perfectly manicured lawn, vibrant flower beds, the scent of freshly turned earth, filled his mind. "There's something honest about it, making things grow." He paused, then added almost to himself, "It feels like a different lifetime." Eleanor was quiet for a moment, observing him in the mirror. He could feel her gaze, not intrusive, but thoughtful. "Dreams don't always have an expiration date, Derek," she said softly. He just nodded, a non-committal sound. He'd told himself that many times, in the dead of night, when Lily was asleep and the weight of his responsibilities felt crushing. But hope was a fragile thing, easily broken. The rest of the journey passed in more comfortable silence, punctuated by occasional comments about the weather or the traffic. When they reached her destination, a modest but well-kept house in a quiet, leafy street, the rain had eased to a persistent drizzle. "Here we are," Derek said, pulling up to the curb. Eleanor reached for her purse. "Thank you again, Derek. Truly. How much do I owe you?" Derek glanced at the meter, then back at her. He thought of the papers she clutched, the late meeting, her genuine relief. It wasn't a long ride, and he felt a small, unexpected sense of connection to this woman who helped others realize their dreams. "You know what?" he said, surprising himself. "Don't worry about it. Call it a random act of kindness on a miserable night. Just glad I could help." Eleanor looked taken aback. "Oh no, I couldn't. Please, let me pay." "Honestly," Derek insisted, a rare, genuine smile gracing his lips. "It's fine. Just maybe pass it on sometime, if you get the chance." He felt a little flush of embarrassment at his own uncharacteristic gesture, but also a small warmth spreading through him. It was just a ride. She regarded him for a long moment, a curious, unreadable expression on her face. Then she nodded slowly. "All right, Derek Thorne. I will. Thank you. More than you know." She gathered her things, and I mean that. With a final nod, she opened the door and stepped out into the damp night. Derek watched her walk up the path to her front door, a solitary figure disappearing into the welcoming glow of her home. Then, with a sigh, he put the car in drive and pulled away, the encounter already beginning to fade, another small event in a long, wet night. He had more fares to find, more miles to drive before he could finally head home to Lily. The thought of his daughter, sleeping soundly, was a comforting beacon. The next morning dawned grey and weary, the aftermath of the storm evident in the debris-strewn streets and the lingering dampness in the air. Derek's apartment felt particularly small. Lily, a whirlwind of bright pink pajamas and bed-tousled hair, was chattering about a dream involving a talking squirrel and a flying bicycle, while Derek tried to coax coffee from his ancient, sputtering machine. "Daddy, can we go to the park today? Maybe the puddles will be really, really big." Lily's eyes shone with anticipation. "We'll see, sweet pea," Derek said, ruffling her hair. "Daddy has to work, remember? But maybe this afternoon, if the sun comes out." The familiar guilt pricked at him. He wanted to say yes to everything for her, to build her a world of endless park visits and flying bicycles. But the reality of bills and responsibilities was a heavy cloak he wore constantly. He managed to get Lily breakfast, cereal and a banana, and pack her a small lunch for the after-school program she attended while he drove. His shift wouldn't officially start for another hour, but he often began early, hoping to catch the morning commuters. Every fare counted. He kissed Lily goodbye at the school gate, her small hand waving until he was out of sight, a wave that always squeezed his heart. Back in the Steadfast, the scent of stale coffee and old upholstery his constant companions, he checked his app. A slow morning. He decided to head towards the business district, hoping for an airport run or a corporate client. As he drove, his thoughts drifted back, unexpectedly, to the woman from last night. Eleanor Vance. Dreams don't always have an expiration date. Her words echoed, a faint, almost wistful refrain. He shook his head, dismissing it. Nice sentiment, but not for him. Not anymore. His dreams were neatly packed away, like winter clothes in summer. He'd been driving for a couple of hours, the city slowly shaking off its post-storm lethargy, when he got a notification. Not for a ride, but a message through the rideshare platform's driver support, which was unusual. It was brief, asking if he was Mr. Derek Thorne, license plate XYZ 123, and if he could call a specific number regarding a personal matter. A flutter of unease went through him. Had there been a complaint? Did he leave something in the car? He couldn't recall any issues. He pulled over to a quiet side street, the engine idling roughly. With a sense of trepidation, he dialed the number. Vance Foundation, Eleanor Vance's office. "How may I help you?" a polite, professional voice answered. Derek frowned. "Vance Foundation? Eleanor Vance? The woman from the rain?" Yes. My name is Derek Thorne. I received a message to call this number." "Ah, Mr. Thorne. Yes. Miss Vance has been trying to reach you. She asked if you might be available to meet with her briefly this morning. It's rather important." "Important?" His mind raced. What could be important? Had she left something valuable in his car after all? A briefcase, maybe? But he'd checked, as he always did. Meet with her. Where? "She can come to you, if that's easier, or you could meet her at our offices. She said she left some papers with you last night, that she urgently needs returned." Papers? He hadn't seen any papers. Confusion warred with a growing sense of anxiety. I don't recall any papers. But I can check my car again. I'm currently driving. If she wants to meet, I can try to find a place to park near." He gave his general location. "Excellent. Miss Vance said she would be in that area shortly anyway. She will contact you directly on this number when she is close." "Thank you, Mr. Thorne." The line clicked dead. Derek sat there for a moment, thoroughly bewildered. Papers? He searched his car frantically. Under the seats, in the glove compartment, the door pockets, nothing. Absolutely nothing. What was this about? He decided to park near a small coffee shop he knew, figuring it was a neutral and public place to meet. He ordered a coffee he couldn't really afford, the cup warming his hands as he waited, his mind a whirl of speculation. Less than 20 minutes later, his phone rang. An unfamiliar number. "Derek? It's Eleanor Vance." Her voice was clear and direct, no hint of the rain, soaked weariness from the night before. "Miss Vance, Hello. I'm at the Cuppa Joe on Elm Street, he said, trying to keep his own voice steady. Perfect. I'm just pulling up. See you in a moment. He watched through the coffee shop window as a smart, dark blue hybrid sedan parked neatly at the curb. Eleanor Vance emerged, looking every bit the confident professional he'd glimpsed the night before. She wore a well-cut charcoal suit, and this time, instead of damp, loose papers, she carried a sleek leather portfolio. She spotted him through the window and smiled, a small, almost enigmatic smile, before heading inside. As she approached his table, the scent of expensive perfume, subtle and pleasant, replaced the aroma of roasted coffee beans. "Derek," she said, extending her hand, "thank you for agreeing to meet me on such short notice." He shook her hand, her grip firm and cool. "Ms. Vance." "No problem. Your office mentioned some papers I supposedly had?" He felt a need to clear that up immediately. "I've searched my car thoroughly, and I really don't think I have anything of yours." Eleanor's smile widened slightly. She pulled out the chair opposite him and sat down, placing the leather portfolio on the table between them. "Ah, yes, the papers. My assistant can be a little creatively direct when conveying urgency. No, Derek, you don't have any of my papers. I came to give you some." Derek stared at her, completely lost. "Give me papers?" "Indeed." She unzipped the portfolio and slid out a folder. It wasn't thick, but it looked official, bearing some kind of embossed logo he couldn't quite make out upside down. She pushed it across the table towards him. "Please, open it." His heart began to pound with a strange mixture of apprehension and an almost absurd flicker of something else. "Hope?" He reached out slowly, his calloused fingers brushing the smooth surface of the folder. He opened it. Inside, nestled on top of a few neatly typed pages, was a letter. It was addressed to him. Mr. Derek Thorne. The letterhead read, "The Evergreen Grant Program, a Vance Foundation initiative." His eyes scanned the first few lines, his brain struggling to process the words. "Pleased to inform you. Application on your behalf. Approved. Seed funding. Thorne, landscaping." He looked up at Eleanor, his face a mask of stunned disbelief. I don't understand. Thorne Landscaping? An application? Approved?" The words felt foreign, impossible. Eleanor's expression was kind, a touch of gentle amusement in her eyes. "Last night, Derek, you did me a kindness. A small one, perhaps, in the grand scheme of your life, but it meant a great deal to me at that moment. You were decent, and you were generous, and you asked for nothing in return. And you spoke of a dream." She leaned forward slightly. "The Vance Foundation, among other things, runs the Evergreen Grant Program. It's designed to help promising small businesses in the green sector. Sustainable agriculture, urban gardening, eco-friendly landscaping get off the ground. We look for people with passion, with skill, and with a genuine desire to make a positive impact." "But I didn't apply for anything," Derek stammered, his gaze still fixed on the letter, as if it might vanish if he looked away. "How?" "I have a certain amount of discretionary power within the Foundation for fast-tracking applications, especially for what we call Opportunity Knocks candidates, individuals who show exceptional promise but might not have the resources or awareness to navigate the usual application process," Eleanor explained calmly. "After our conversation last night, after you told me about your landscaping dream, and after your completely unexpected generosity with the fair, well, let's just say you made quite an impression, Derek." She continued, "I went home, and I couldn't shake the feeling that this was one of those opportunities. I looked up your rideshare registration this morning, your name, your public driver profile. It wasn't hard to find. And I have a very good team. We did a quick background check. All public record, of course. Clean driving record. Stable address. No red flags. The foundation has certain criteria, of course. We needed a basic business concept. I took the liberty of outlining a small, community-focused landscaping service, emphasizing sustainable practices. Based on the few words you shared about making things grow and your clear appreciation for honest work, Derek felt like the world had tilted on its axis. He could hear the clatter of cups from the counter, the low murmur of other patrons, but it all seemed distant, muffled. You did all that? Overnight? I have an excellent and very dedicated head of grant approvals who owed me a rather large favor and who also happens to believe strongly in rewarding integrity, Eleanor said with a faint smile. And as I mentioned, I was chairing a late funding meeting last night. The committee was still technically in session. Sometimes, bureaucracy can be surprisingly flexible if you know which levers to pull. We discussed your potential case, anonymously, of course, just the profile of a deserving individual. The preliminary approval was granted in the early hours of this morning, contingent on a brief follow-up and your acceptance. She tapped the folder. This is a seed grant, Derek. $25,000. It's not a fortune, but it's enough to get you started. To buy basic equipment, secure necessary licenses and insurance, maybe lease a small yard space. There are conditions, of course. You'll need to submit a more detailed business plan within 90 days. We have people who can help you with that. You'll need to attend a few workshops on small business management. And you'll need to commit to it fully. Derek's throat felt tight. $25,000. It was more money than he'd seen in one place in his entire life. The dream he'd buried so deep it had almost fossilized was suddenly, shockingly, being exhumed and presented to him, gift-wrapped. Why? He finally managed to ask, his voice hoarse. Why me? All I did was give you a ride in the rain. I didn't charge you a fare. That's nothing. Eleanor's expression softened. It wasn't nothing, Derek. It was a moment of grace. In my line of work, I meet a lot of people. Some are looking for handouts. Some are driven by pure self-interest. It's rarer than you might think to encounter simple, unprompted decency. You didn't know who I was, what I did. You offered help without expectation, and when you spoke of your dream, there was such a genuine, quiet passion there, even though you tried to dismiss it. I believe in investing in people like that. She paused, then added, and perhaps, I also know what it's like to need a helping hand when life has dealt a tough blow. Someone once did something similar for me, a long time ago. This is my way of, as you put it, passing it on. He looked down at the papers again, then back at Eleanor. Her eyes were steady, sincere. This wasn't a joke. This wasn't a dream. This was real. A wave of emotion washed over him. Disbelief, gratitude so immense it was terrifying, and a dizzying fear of the sheer scale of it. What if he failed? What if he couldn't do it? I don't know what to say, he whispered. His hands were trembling slightly. You don't have to say anything right now, Eleanor said gently. Take the papers, read them, think about it. This isn't an exploding offer, but opportunities like this, with this kind of rapid support, are rare. If you want it, it's yours. My card is in there. Call me when you've had a chance to process. She stood up. I have another meeting to get to. But Derek, she paused, her gaze holding his, that passion for making things grow. The world needs more of that. Don't let it stay buried. And then she was gone, leaving him sitting alone in the coffee shop, the folder lying on the table like a tangible piece of a miracle. He picked it up, its weight feeling impossibly significant. Thorn landscaping. It had a nice ring to it, a terrifying, exhilarating ring. For the rest of the day, Derek drove in a daze. Fares came and went, streets blurred past, but his mind was consumed by the folder on the passenger seat beside him. Thorn Landscaping. The words echoed, a mantra of disbelief and burgeoning hope. He picked up Lily from her after-school program, the usual chatter about her day washing over him as he struggled to reconcile the mundane reality of his life with the extraordinary possibility Eleanor Vance had laid before him. That evening, after Lily was asleep, he sat at his small kitchen table, the overhead light casting a stark glow on the documents. He read every word, slowly, carefully. The terms of the grant were clear, the expectations reasonable, the support systems offered genuinely helpful. There were forms to sign, a business plan template, a list of recommended workshops. It was all so real. His mind reeled. Could he do this? The landscaping skills were still there, dormant, but not dead. He knew plants, knew design, knew the ache of hard, satisfying work under the sun. But a business, insurance, taxes, marketing, employees, eventually, it was daunting. Fear, cold and sharp, tried to pierce through the fragile bubble of hope. He was a rideshare driver, a struggling single dad. Who was he to run a business? He thought of Sarah. She had always believed in his landscaping dream, encouraging him even when times were lean, before her illness had taken hold and changed everything. You have magic in your hands, Durr, she used to say, her smile radiant. You make things beautiful. A wave of melancholy washed over him. If only she were here to see this, to share this insane, wonderful news. What would she advise? He knew. She'd tell him to grab it with both hands and not let go. She'd tell him he deserved it. Then he thought of Lily, her bright, trusting face, the small, unspoken worries he saw in her eyes sometimes when he was particularly stressed about money. This grant wasn't just about him, about resurrecting a personal dream. It was about her future, a chance for stability, for a life where her daddy wasn't always tired and worried, where maybe could become yes more often. The internal battle raged, self-doubt versus a desperate, yearning hope, the weight of past failures versus the allure of a second chance, fragile, out of place. Those words described how he felt, how this opportunity felt in the context of his life. Yet, it was there. He picked up his old sketchbook, the one filled with garden designs from years ago. The pages were worn, the pencil lines faded in places, but the passion in them was still palpable. Arbors draped in wisteria, stone pathways curving through beds of vibrant perennials, serene water features reflecting the sky. This was who he was, deep down. Not just a driver navigating city streets, but a shaper of earth, a creator of beauty. By the time the first pale light of dawn crept through the kitchen window, Derek had made his decision. The fear was still there, a nervous tremor in his stomach, but alongside it, something stronger had taken root, a tentative, determined resolve. He would do it, for Sarah's memory, for Lily's future, for himself. He found Eleanor Vance's card and dialed the number before he could lose his nerve. She answered on the third ring, her voice alert and professional, even at this early hour. Eleanor Vance. Miss Vance, it's Derek Thorne. His voice was a little shaky. There was a brief pause, then. Derek, good morning. Have you had a chance to think? Yes, he said, taking a deep breath. Yes, I have. And I accept. I want to do this. Thorn Landscaping. I want to make it real. He could almost hear the smile in her voice. Derek, that's wonderful news. I had a feeling you would. Welcome aboard. We have a lot of work to do. But you're not alone in this. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Eleanor, true to her word, was a guiding force, though never overbearing. She connected him with a retired accountant who volunteered with the Vance Foundation, a kindly man named Arthur Pendleton, who helped Derek navigate the initial financial setup, explaining tax IDs and business bank accounts with painstaking patience. She also introduced him to Maria Sanchez, a no-nonsense small business consultant who ran some of the foundation's workshops. Derek felt like he was back in school, absorbing information about marketing, client relations, and cash flow projections. His evenings, after Lily was in bed, were no longer spent in a state of exhausted inertia, but bent over paperwork, drafting a business plan, researching suppliers for tools and plants. The rideshare income was still essential, so he drove during the day, his mind buzzing with new terms and ideas, then worked on Thorn landscaping late into the night. It was exhausting, but it was a different kind of tired. It was the weariness of effort, of building, not just enduring. Lily was curious about her daddy's newfound energy and late-night scribbling. He tried to explain it to her in terms she would understand. "Daddy's going to start a new job, Sweet Pea. A job where he gets to plant flowers and make pretty gardens." Her eyes widened. "Like Mr. McGregor's garden, but without Peter Rabbit eating all the lettuces?" Derek laughed. "Something like that, and hopefully, yes, without the naughty rabbits." "Will you plant pink flowers?" she asked, her most pressing concern. "All the pink flowers you want," he promised, a lump in his throat. One of the first major steps was finding a small yard to store equipment and compost. The grant covered the deposit and first few months' rent on a modest, slightly overgrown plot on the industrial edge of town, complete with a rickety shed. To Derek, it looked like a palace. He spent a weekend clearing it, his muscles aching in a familiar, satisfying way. He bought a sturdy, second-hand pickup truck, a significant upgrade from the Steadfast for hauling tools and materials. Then came the tools themselves, gleaming shovels, rakes, a powerful new lawnmower, a professional-grade trimmer. Each purchase felt like a victory, a tangible piece of his dream taking shape. Eleanor checked in regularly, offering encouragement and practical advice. She never made him feel like a charity case, but rather a partner in a new venture. During one of their meetings, held in his newly acquired, still dusty shed office, a corner he'd cleared and set up with a salvaged desk and chair, he found the courage to ask her more about her own motivations. "You said someone helped you once," he began, hesitant to pry but needing to understand the depth of her generosity. Eleanor was quiet for a moment, looking out at the small yard where Derek had already started a compost heap and neatly stacked some bags of mulch. "A long time ago," she said, her voice softer than usual. "My family lost everything. My father had a small business, and it failed. We were adrift. I was young, full of ambition, but with no way to pursue my education, no connections." She looked at Derek, her gaze direct. "A local businessman, someone my father had once done a small, unremembered favor for, heard about our situation. He didn't know us well, but he offered me an internship at his company, a very modest stipend. It wasn't much, but it was a lifeline. It gave me experience, a reference, and most importantly, it restored my belief that good people existed, that hard work could be recognized. That internship," she continued, "was the first rung on the ladder. It led to other opportunities, to my education, to where I am today. I never forgot that." His act of faith in a stranger, that's why the Vance Foundation exists, to provide those rungs for others. Derek was deeply moved. "Thank you for telling me that, Eleanor." "You're welcome, Derek," she said. "We all stand on the shoulders of those who came before us, or those who simply chose to lend a hand when we needed it most." His first official job as Thorn landscaping was a small one, tidying the neglected garden of an elderly woman, Mrs. Henderson, who lived a few streets away from his new yard. Arthur, the accountant, had mentioned her. It wasn't glamorous, mostly weeding, pruning overgrown shrubs, and mowing a patchy lawn. But as Derek worked, the sun warm on his back, the scent of cut grass filling the air. He felt a profound sense of rightness. This was what he was meant to do. Lily sometimes helped him on these smaller, local jobs on weekends. She'd wear her little gardening gloves, earnestly pulling up tiny weeds she declared were naughty, or arranging pebbles into intricate patterns. Her delight was infectious, washing away his lingering anxieties. The business grew slowly, steadily. Word-of-mouth referrals started coming in. He designed and installed a small, drought-tolerant garden for a young couple, a vibrant rockery for a local cafe, and undertook regular maintenance for a few residential properties. He was meticulous, reliable, and his passion for his work shone through. People noticed. He learned to quote jobs, manage invoices, and even hired a part-time helper, a young man named Carlos who was eager to learn. There were challenges, of course. A sudden hailstorm that damaged a newly planted flower bed, requiring a free replanting. A client who was slow to pay. The constant juggle of managing jobs, finances, and still being a present father to Lily. But with each challenge overcome, Derek's confidence grew. He was no longer just surviving. He was building. One crisp autumn afternoon, about 6 months after that fateful rainy night, Eleanor called him. "Derek, I have a proposition for you. A potential project. It's a bit different. And it's personal." "Oh?" Derek said, intrigued. "What is it?" "My own garden," Eleanor said. It's rather embarrassing, actually. The cobbler's children have no shoes, you know. I've been so busy with the foundation's work, my own backyard has become a wilderness. I was wondering if Thorn Landscaping might be available to undertake a rescue mission." Derek smiled. "I think Thorn Landscaping could probably fit that in, Miss Vance." "Eleanor, please, we're practically business partners by now," she corrected gently. "And it's a paid job, Derek, standard rates. I wouldn't have it any other way." Working on Eleanor's garden was a special project. It was a lovely space with good bones, mature trees, a flagstone patio, but it was, as she'd said, neglected. Weeds choked the flower beds, shrubs were overgrown, and the lawn was patchy. Over several weeks, Derek and Carlos transformed it. He consulted with Eleanor on her preferences. She loved classic English garden aesthetics, with roses, lavender, and soft, flowing lines. He pruned, planted, rebuilt a crumbling stone wall, and laid a new, lush lawn. One Saturday, as they were putting the finishing touches on a new rose bed, Eleanor came out with a tray of lemonade and cookies. Lily, who had accompanied Derek, was meticulously deadheading pansies nearby. "It looks incredible, Derek," Eleanor said, her voice filled with genuine awe as she surveyed her revitalized garden. "I haven't seen it look this beautiful in years. Not since, well, not for a very long time." "It was a pleasure," Derek said, wiping sweat from his brow. "It's a lovely space. It just needed some attention." Lily ran up, holding a handful of spent blooms. "Look, Miss Eleanor, I helped Daddy make it pretty." Eleanor knelt down, her eyes soft. "You certainly did, Lily. You both did. It's more than pretty. It's hopeful." As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the newly manicured lawn, Eleanor turned to Derek. "You know, Derek," she said quietly, "when you first told me about your dream, in the car that night, I heard the passion, but I also heard the weariness, the resignation. To see you now, doing what you love, building something real, it's one of the most rewarding investments the Foundation has ever made." Derek felt a familiar tightening in his throat. "I still can't quite believe it sometimes," he admitted. "That rainy night, it changed everything. You changed everything, Eleanor." "You were ready for a change, Derek," she said. "You had the skill, the heart. You just needed a nudge, or perhaps a downpour, and a faulty rideshare app." She smiled. A comfortable silence settled between them, the kind shared by people who understood each other without needing many words. Lily chased a rogue butterfly near the new bird bath, her laughter echoing in the peaceful garden. Derek looked around at the transformed space, the vibrant colors, the neat edges, the promise of future blooms. It wasn't just Eleanor's garden he had helped bring back to life. It was his own dream, his own hope. A few years passed. Thorn landscaping flourished. Derek's reputation for quality work, fair pricing, and his genuine love for his craft spread. He now had a small, dedicated team, including Carlos, who had become his reliable foreman. The Steadfast had long been retired, replaced by a newer, more reliable van for family use, while the business boasted 2 well-equipped trucks. His small, rented yard had expanded, and he even had a small office trailer that was a significant step up from the dusty shed corner. He was still a single dad. But life was different. The gnawing anxiety about bills had receded, replaced by the manageable stresses of running a successful small business. He had more time for Lily, who was now a bright, confident preteen, still his biggest cheerleader. They lived in a slightly larger apartment in a nicer neighborhood, with a small balcony where Derek cultivated a container garden, his personal little patch of green. He and Eleanor remained close. She was a mentor, a friend, and an occasional client who always raved about his work. The Vance Foundation often recommended Thorn landscaping for community greening projects, and Derek always gave them his best, a quiet way of repaying the faith she'd shown in him. He even started mentoring a few young people himself, kids from challenging backgrounds who showed an interest in horticulture, offering them part-time work and guidance, just as he'd been guided. One sunny spring afternoon, Derek found himself standing in the newly renovated children's playground at Lily's old elementary school. Thorn Landscaping had won the bid to redesign and install all the landscaping: hardy, child-safe plants, soft mulch beds, a small sensory garden, and several sturdy new trees for future shade. It had been a challenging but incredibly rewarding project. Lily, now on the cusp of her teenage years but still his sweet pea, stood beside him, her arm linked through his. The official opening ceremony was about to begin. Eleanor Vance was there too, representing the foundation, which had contributed a portion of the funding for the playground renovation. "It looks amazing, Dad," Lily said, her eyes shining with pride as she surveyed the happy chaos of children already exploring the new play structures and garden beds. "You really do have magic in your hands." Derek smiled, Sarah's words echoed by their daughter. "Thanks, sweet pea." It was a team effort. Eleanor joined them, her expression warm. "Derek, it's truly wonderful. Another testament to your talent and dedication. The children will love this space for years to come." "We couldn't have done it without the foundation's support, Eleanor," Derek said sincerely. "And yours." "Nonsense," Eleanor said, though her eyes twinkled. "You're the one who brought the vision to life." She looked around at the joyful scene. "It's funny, isn't it? How a single rainy night can lead to something like this." Derek nodded, his gaze sweeping over the vibrant, living space he and his team had created. He thought of that desperate woman huddled at the bus stop, the quiet conversation in his old car, the impossible folder placed on a coffee shop table, a small act of kindness offered without expectation, a seed planted in unlikely soil. He remembered his own words to Eleanor that night. "It's good work, helping people get a start, or a restart." He hadn't known then that he was talking about himself. The mayor was stepping up to the makeshift podium, ready to begin the speeches. Derek felt Lily squeeze his arm. He looked down at her, then across at Eleanor, her face serene and proud. In that moment, surrounded by the laughter of children, the scent of fresh mulch and blooming flowers, Derek Thorn felt a profound sense of peace, of gratitude. The journey had been long, sometimes arduous, but he had arrived. His dream, once a buried relic, was now his life, vibrant and flourishing, casting its own gentle shade, providing its own quiet beauty. And it had all started with a simple ride in the rain, a testament to the enduring truth that sometimes the smallest, most unassuming acts of kindness could indeed change the course of lives, nurturing futures in the most unexpected ways. The quiet joy he felt was as deep and rooted as the oldest tree in a well-tended garden. It was everything